We are going to solve so many situations with this series. It's going to be amazing. So stay tuned, get out your pencil and your paper, because we're going to be answering the questions of why would a seller sell to you via subject to? How does an agent get paid in a creative finance deal? And how are we going to overcome the debt to income ratio? We have a whole series coming out because we are doing an active deal right now with Victoria, an agent that I love doing creative finance deals with. Today, we're gonna be doing a whiteboard video. So again, pull out your pen, your paper, share this with your friends. This is one for the ages. Part two, we've already made these because we've had these conversations. An agent's going to call me and explain the problem that their seller, Robbie, is going through, which I'll break down on the whiteboard video today so you kind of have a better understanding before you watch the call in part two. In part three, I will be then pitching the seller with the agent on the call, and you'll hear me pitch subject to the seller and get the property basically under contract. Then four, we are going to be talking to the lender about the debt to income ratio. Pace, how can a seller sell their house to you via subject to and go and get qualified to get a second home? We're gonna be showing you exactly how we overcome that. We've actually never done that on the YouTube channel before. It's a special treat. This series is a special treat. Part five, call with Victoria, talking through a lease option, because that ends up being the best solution for the seller, best solution for the lender in order to overcome all of the problems that exist in this transaction. And then part six, we're gonna break down what a lease option is for you guys on a final whiteboard video. So stay tuned for all of these 6 videos that will be released subsequently and put together in a series so you guys can solve all of these problems that pop up in your mind. Now, let's break down the deal. We've got Robbie is a family, husband, wife, 2 kids. Robbie decides to hire Victoria, the agent, to sell the house that they are in now. They want to upgrade and go find another property. They're gonna run into a problem, which we'll talk about right here on this video. And Victoria goes and puts their house on the MLS, right? This is where you list your houses for sale. Victoria gets the photos, gets the listing information, and she goes and puts it on the MLS. The MLS is called the Multiple Listing Service. Really stupid name for the agent marketplace. It's where real estate agents, both selling and buying houses for their respective clients, can go and have a marketplace where they work together. It's called the MLS, and only agents have access to it. Okay, cool. So Victoria gets all the information, she puts it on the MLS. There's a family out there that says, hey, we want a new home for us. And so they go hire a buyer's agent and let that buyer's agent start doing a search on the MLS. This buyer agent finds this house that Robbie is selling, put on the market by Victoria, obviously finds it on the MLS. Takes it back to the family and says, hey, I see a house listed on the MLS right now. Do you like this house? The family says, heck yeah, we sure do. We love that house. Let's buy that. And so the buyer's agent calls Victoria directly and says, hey, saw your property on the MLS. We want to submit a full price offer. And Victoria then goes back to her client and says, hey, we've got a buyer. They're ready to move forward. They want to do a full price offer. Let's get this deal done. Robbie, Victoria say, yes, we like their terms. We like everything they're doing. And ultimately, they get under what we call a PSA, purchase and sale agreement. So they have the price, they have the time frame, they have all this stuff, all in agreement. And this family says, we're so serious about buying this house that we're gonna put up about $5,000 in non-refundable earnest money, right? So this is where Gator lending comes in. We're gonna put in $5,000 non-refundable EMD, as we call it, earnest money deposit. And that's how serious we are about buying this house. So Victoria says, hey, we're good to go. We're gonna close escrow. They're gonna buy your house. You guys can now start looking for another house, all right? So this is what Victoria does. Victoria then goes and finds another house for Robbie and their family to move into, okay? So she's a completely separate transaction. Robbie and them find this house. Not only do they find this house, but they get a lender involved, and this lender's name is Tim. Tim, as you will see, is in part 4, him and I having a conversation about how to overcome the debt to income ratio. Now, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I'm gonna tell you the problem that arose, and then you will hear a lot more context here. But I really didn't want you to jump into the calls, because when I'm in the call, I can't explain to the YouTube audience what the heck is going on. And so we're doing that preemptively before you watch the call. But there's a problem that pops up. Here's where the problem pops up. Tim says, hey, you are approved for the new loan on this new house. Yes, 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 you're good, everything's good. This family, as you can imagine, Robbie, his wife, their 2 kids, they get emotional about this house. They start going over there, they're picking out their furniture, the wife is starting to buy paint colors and testing things out, and oh my gosh, I can't wait to bring our family to this new home, and they're emotional with buying this house. Super emotional, we've all been there. This is super amazing for the family. Victoria is gonna get paid on this transaction. She's gonna get paid on this transaction. So Victoria's pumped up. The other agent is pumped up. Tim is pumped up. The family's pumped up. Everything's good to go. Cool. What happens with this contract between this buyer and Robbie and their family is that the day they are supposed to close escrow, we call that the day of COE or close of escrow, the buyer cancels, doesn't even give an explanation, is okay with releasing the $5,000. So at least the family got the $5,000, but they don't want the $5,000. They want to sell their house and they want to move into this new house, which Tim, the lender, says they can't move into until this house is sold. Okay? Dang it. This happens all the time. So if you're a real estate agent and you get caught in these situations, I want you to understand that this is how creative finance actually helps sellers, helps agents, helps a lot of people. So Victoria and I have done multiple deals before, and she calls me up and she says, Pace, what just happened is this buyer just canceled, and now my family that I'm representing doesn't have a buyer anymore, yet they're already under contract on a new house, and now they're stuck with this house. Here's her options. A, she has to go back and relist the property. And if she relists the property, that's kind of the death sentence, because what happens is if you relist the property on the MLS, now it looks like there's something wrong with the house, because it's like, oh, fell out of contract, fell out of escrow, canceled contract. People can see the history of the house, and the prospective buyers are now going to start lowballing and going, there's something wrong with the house that you're not telling us. And it just, people will avoid it, okay? And they'll go find something else. So they really don't want to do this. They say, no, we don't want to do this. And by the way, this would take another 90 to 180 days. And what would happen is the family, Robbie's family, would lose out on this house because they can't wait that long. This family down here that's selling the property to Robbie doesn't want to wait 90 to 180 days. So that's option 1. Option 2 would be find a cash buyer. And in this video right here, part 2, I explain why it cannot be a cash buyer and why this is not a cash transaction. No real estate investor wants to pay that much money for this particular property. And we'll get into the numbers in part 2. But again, this is to provide a lot of context to you. Or option C, the third option, would be creative finance. Now, what's cool is Victoria and I have closed other transactions in North Carolina. I did an amazing deal with her last October. Really loved it. It was her first sub-2 deal, and Tim, the lender, was involved in that transaction as well. So Victoria, what does she do? She chooses option C. Actually, she thought she was going to choose option B. She comes into the Elephant Challenge. We do it every single month, so make sure you register for that. It's a free challenge, elephantchallenge.info. Go over there, come hang out with us. We'd love to see you. She comes and calls me and she says, Pace, I need a cash buyer. I need a cash buyer. Please help me out. And I'm like, Victoria, there's nobody that's a cash buyer that wants to buy that house at that price. We need to go and use creative finance, particularly subject to. She says, perfect. I'll go back to my client, Robbie, and see if he wants to do it. So in call number 3, Robbie and I actually get on a phone call and I pitch subject to him. So you will get to see me pitch subject to a seller. You'll hear me go through all the objections, all the problems, all of those types of things, and essentially solve their problem. Now, what will then happen is you're gonna see Tim, their lender, get on board and go, well, I thought they were gonna sell their other house, but now they've got the loan in place. Pace, how can we overcome their debt to income ratio? And that is what we talk about in part 4. I coach him through. I then in part 5 call Victoria and explain to her what a lease option is. And so these types of transactions pop up all the time. I want you guys to enjoy this transaction, because what is awesome about this is I end up buying this property subject to. This is a very fresh transaction. I buy this property subject to, save the family from the situation, get 2% blended interest rate, 2% blended interest rate. I just saw a post today by Patrick Bet-David talking about how interest rates just went over 7%. I just got a 2% interest rate by solving an agent's problem, solving a family's problem, solving the lender's problem, solving everybody's problem with subject to and seller finance. It's actually a hybrid deal structure. So what we're gonna do is let you guys watch these other videos, and in part 6, We're gonna explain the structure of this lease option and how I actually acquire on a lease option, not subject to and not seller finance, and why I'm doing that will make so much sense as you watch these other videos. So please, if you have questions, make them down in the comments, and we might even do a follow-up, like a part 7 to everybody's questions that are in the comments. So please ask questions. We'll do a follow-up video, add it to the playlist, give you guys all the Q&A about how this deal and the entire group of people were all saved with Creative Finance. Now, if you're in the sub 2 community, this is the most powerful thing. We come to the table like superheroes. So if you're trying to join the greatest real estate community, the largest real estate community, and honestly, the only actual community in real estate, a lot of people are just mentorships and courses. That's not what we are. We are a community. There's a link to join our community down below and get on a call with the team and see if there's a way for you to come into the community. We'll see you guys in part 2 of this series.